Hi, everyone. I am Jonathan Lowe. I'll answer those questions and then get into this presentation. Fractional CMO. I'm actually based in Salt Lake City, and so flew out here for this presentation and spending some time with Doug as well. One thing I'm really enjoying about Santa Cruz right now is hearing the ocean. In the valley, we don't get that kind of natural water and that rhythm, and it's just really calming and freeing and feels very natural to be here. So I'm excited to get to know all of you a little more. Hopefully I'll get to say hi to all of you throughout after this presentation. So demographics are dead. What does that even mean? And I will make sure I am in frame. So yeah, just a little about my career. My undergrad actually is in electrical engineering at the University of Illinois. And then I did some certifications with McKinsey and then did grad school with a master's in management, finishing just last year, which I was very excited for. Early in my career, I ended up pivoting from engineering and working for a global nonprofit called World Vision. They are a long-term sustainable community development nonprofit that works with extreme poverty. They're actually really large, 40,000 staff in 97 countries. And I learned about global poverty issues, felt compelled to do something about it. I ended up taking a fellowship program with them and then stayed there. And that's where I ended up learning digital marketing. I then transitioned as I was feeling a cap to learning the right next level of hard skills that I needed in my career. Still love World Vision, still donate to them. As I was leaving, I ran a marathon to raise $10,000 for clean water for them, and I don't enjoy running. But then came out to Overstock, ran their paid social and display ads, about 50 million in budget just that my team was spending. Ended up being the director of consumer insights and then director of brand strategy as we transitioned to the acquisition of Bed Bath & Beyond. And this year, oh, not quite yet. And then down here, I have this fancy laser. By the way, I'm very happy with my new presentation clicker. Worked on a few little startups along the way and failed and learned a lot through that. And here I am now with my current brand, Salt Foundry. That's just my brand as a fractional CMO. So as a fractional chief marketing officer, my focus industry, my expertise really is in direct-to-consumer e-commerce. And so partnering with brands on that. Real quick, just a note on my family. I have a beautiful wife named Sarah. We have no kids at the moment and no pets at the moment either, but someday hopefully both in the future. So I'm curious to hear a bit. I had this little subtitle for the talk. Is age 35 to 44 women with 150K income a market segment? I'm curious to hear, does anyone have an opinion on, is that a market segment?
Maybe.
Okay. You're saying maybe, but maybe it's not very specific.
I'll second that. It's better than nothing.
Better than nothing.
But
Yep.
it's not very good.
Not very good. Yes, indeed. It totally is. Can you elaborate? Okay. So you're saying because we know a lot about women in this age in general and this income, we can assume a lot of their actions and values, and then we can apply that. So again, not enough information, a lack of specificity to be useful, maybe. Yeah, very helpful. So you're saying that as you're in that demographic, actually some of the insights already shared don't necessarily apply directly to you as an individual. And 1970s TV commercial demographic, so broad. Yeah, yeah. A lot of you are already speaking near and dear to my heart, and so we're going to share and dive a bit into this topic. So 3 goals today, as promised. One is to kind of outline a very basic kind of foundation for marketing strategy. The intent of that really is just to frame our conversation where this fits in with everything else. Number 2 is recognize the value of customer empathy. You're going to hear me use that word a lot in this conversation as a UX researcher. Hopefully that feels good to you. You're very glad that that will be a focus of this conversation. I love my UX researchers. And then 3, know when to use each type of customer segmentation. And so already, obviously, this is giving you a preview into the specifics of what we'll be talking about today. So first, on this kind of foundations, I don't know Justin Huang. I saw an interview with him, and he said that there is no point in starting a company unless you want to make a contribution to society. I love this. I believe it. I agree with it. I think for-profit companies provide so much value to the world that literally people are wanting to trade their money for the services or products that you're offering. And if we align ourselves in this way, we can really accomplish a lot more. I will say though, if you have a great product and you have great marketing, that's when you can make a massive contribution. If you have a great product and no marketing or poor marketing, it's a massive waste of resources. You're putting in a lot of energy to create something that could add value to people's lives, but nobody knows about it. And so that's part of where I'm actually very passionate about this idea of marketing. People need to know you exist. And so for me, marketing is kind of two things. It's the process of building awareness and also driving actions from your target audience. Marketing is broader than just brand. It's not just what people think about you, although that is part of it. And actually, I just saw online somebody framed the difference between marketing and branding in a way that I appreciated. They said marketing is like asking someone out on a date, and branding is why they say yes. Thought that was pretty insightful. Not the conversation topic today, but I just wanted to share that. From my perspective, bad marketing manipulates, good marketing motivates, and great marketing inspires. I'm curious if you guys can think of any examples of marketing that manipulates. What's something you've seen around that just kind of leaves you icky?
Well, the drug commercials.
All the drug commercials? In what way?
Well, there's like, I don't know, they're saying if you don't take our drug,
Yeah.
It's almost threatening.
Yeah, it can come threatening. Oh. Oh, that is interesting. Yeah.
We could all design a drug commercial without pictures. Why my drug? Funky name, right? That's it.
Dancing on grass, absolutely.
You will absolutely disgusted by experiencing it. I'm not inspired, I'm not motivated.
Yeah.
I'm resistant.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm capable of marketing.
How about marketing that inspires? Anything come to mind? Any great campaigns? Nike, Just Do It, or something recently? Nike doesn't say buy our shoes. I'm repeating for the camera, the recording. Nike doesn't just say buy our shoes, right? They inspire you. They make you the hero of the story, right? And then they are the product, the brand, the support, the guide, the mentor that helps you along that journey. Do you have in mind what that message is? To run like a girl campaign and all that. True beauty. Yep, that's great. Another couple of examples of outdoors. I enjoyed REI's Opt Outside when they closed their stores and e-commerce on Black Friday. And Patagonia had an old commercial that essentially said, "Don't buy this jacket," because they're trying to reduce waste in the environment.
I wanted to say Patagonia because of the behavior of the company.
Okay.
Far less than any print media that I've seen.
Yeah.
They are, and I may be swallowed hook, line, and sinker, but they are absolutely the gold standard when it comes to what inspires me, which is a moral approach to.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
About turning the company.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of brand equity that comes when your values meet what you're doing, and even in alignment with your incorporation status, a B Corp like Patagonia merged for example. Mm-hmm. Love that. So I just wanted to frame out one way to view an effective marketing strategy. This is just from my experiences, and there's many different paths you could take to getting to similar information, but I like taking a view that moves you from the purpose of marketing to the plan, the tactics, your actual execution. And I'd say that a good marketing strategy answers 5 questions. Why do we need marketing? Who are we solving problems for? When and where should we engage with them? How do we measure success? And then what actually do we do, right? What channels, what campaigns, what ad tech, marketing technology stack, et cetera. And so to answer each of these questions, then I've mapped to 5 different strategic elements. Problem statement definitions answer the question of why. Customer and brand strategy answers the questions of who. Marketing systems map, a visualization of basically the user flow and automations you have set up. It answer the question of when and where. A marketing KPI strategy answers the how do you measure success, and then actually prioritizing will answer the questions of what specifically do you actually do. I have a full deck on this, and we could share this after together if people want to stick around or schedule time with me. I'm happy to walk through more of the details for this. But today, we are centering our conversation in customer and brand strategy, and really just one subsection within customer and brand strategy. So I just wanted to frame out that's where we are today. All right, customer empathy. I've already previewed that I'm really passionate about this idea. What is customer empathy? My definition is that customer empathy is taking on the customer perspective in every stage of the shopping journey. So what are the stages, right? A shopper's journey goes from various stages of awareness all the way to purchase and being an advocate, right? There's a space where people are completely actually unaware of even the problem that they might have. So from unawareness to being problem aware, to being aware that there are solutions available, to being aware that there are products available to solve that problem, and then being very aware of the product and feature set. Then you move into consideration, right? So there's awareness, consideration. This is very standard for a lot of you, of actually looking at the different products and even deciding if you even want to make that purchase decision, right? If the value for you is greater than the amount of money that you're willing to pay for it or what it's priced at. Then making the purchase, hopefully repeating the purchase, and then becoming an advocate. A quick example is wooden hangers. I did not know, or maybe people told me and I didn't believe them, but those $3 for a pack of 15 plastic hangers from Target and IKEA might ruin your jackets or sweaters. And after a couple experiences of that happening, and then after starting to buy slightly nicer jackets, I became problem aware, right? There's something that I need to do in order to maintain the investment that I'm making in this clothing. So I Googled around, and you don't have to put clothes on hangers, turns out. One solution is to fold things and put them in drawers, but also there are wider hangers available that can handle a bigger weight. I became product aware, and then I was considering, but also I wish as a consumer that there was more out there, that somebody figured out that I was having this problem and looking into it and could educate me on the different dimensions by which I should make a decision. Does the material matter? Does plastic versus wood matter? Are there carbon fiber or aluminum hangers? Like, is the amount of weight that it holds an issue because suits are heavier than sweaters? I almost wish there was content that was put in front of me to help me solve that like mental burden in my mind so that I could move to the purchase stage and actually solve my problem. Now, after buying it, and I did buy these, and you can actually see that I did repeat. I bought this 2 times. I don't know what brand this is. If you asked me for a recommendation, I couldn't tell you. But what if when they sent me these hangers, there was a warranty card that asked for my email that I would readily give to them, because if I registered within 30 days of purchasing, I'd have a lifetime or some form of a warranty, and their branding was all over. That would actually be of value to me. And then also I gave you my information and permission to speak to me. And what if you sold other items for the closet that could also solve problems before I was even aware that they existed? That to me is a version of customer empathy, understanding where I'm at in my stage and helping me move along to each next step. So how do you put empathy into practice, right? That philosophically hopefully sounds great to all of you, but what do you actually do with that? And for me, the answer is customer segmentation. Customer segmentation empowers empathy. A segmentation at its core is a grouping of prospective buyers with common attributes. I say that a useful segmentation groups prospective buyers with common attributes who will respond similarly to a marketing action. My point is that a customer segment isn't useful unless you can actually affect them. unless there's something that you can do as a brand to impact where they're at in their journey. As a side note as well, you don't create segments, you uncover them. You discover them. You do research to understand who they are. You don't apply your own thinking and your own biases onto them and say, this is what they should do. This is how they should think. This is what they should value. You discover who they are. And that process requires a lot of empathy along the way as well. Empathy both in the interactions where you're asking questions, as well as in how you interpret the data. So by segment, won't read all this out, but basically it works. People have done studies, higher profit, higher CLV and conversion rates, higher email open rates and clicks, right? People have studied this. There is a value. And I imagine if you all A/B test as well, you would see value in this as well. So are demographics dead? Well, I want to go through this little exercise and have you think through the questions of what is true, what is useful, and what is helpful. And we'll use me as a case study. Me earlier in the summer. There I am. All right. I'm male and married, and I have a master's degree, and I have no kids, right? Is this true information? Yeah, this is true. Is it useful to you or to anyone, really? Maybe, right? You start to get a sense of maybe who I am because of it. I'm Asian American. I'm a marketer. All still true things. I live in Utah. Is that useful for any of you? Or potentially depending on what brand, what you're trying to sell. I live in an urban area of Utah as opposed to a rural area. Right? I value the outdoors. Oh, that gives you a whole new layer of information about who I am, right? How my brain works, what I value. And I seek tranquility. And I miss the ocean, which I actually forgot this line was here when I mentioned that I love the rhythm of the oceans, but clearly there is something true to this. Okay, I've got my Saturdays free. Also true, something's becoming a little more useful, maybe a little bit helpful. I want to spend more time on the water. My wife is frustrated with the inflatable raft that we have that has 3 massive pieces and is very cumbersome to set up and to paddle in and to tear down. And look, I searched inflatable paddleboard on Google. Is that useful at this point? Is that very helpful? I visited your website, I added products to cart, and I abandoned cart. All of this is true. Some of it's useful, and some of it becomes more and more helpful the more information that you get, right? Just curious, how many of you think I bought the Santa paddle or bought one? 2? Half of you? Okay. Actually, I'm surprised how few of you raised your hand. I did buy the Santa paddleboard. I was very motivated, and I actually did not. Yeah, so I ended up doing additional research and finding a value proposition from YouTube videos on an Amazon. And so I don't know if Amazon's the evil enemy in the room, but I ended up buying this particular paddleboard in this color from Amazon. I did not buy the products that actually, of which I went on their website. Yeah, they didn't do a good enough job selling me into either their brand or the product features that probably honestly make a lot of sense why they cost more. Yeah. That's a great question. So the question was, is it useful to understand which element was most helpful? Most is an interesting term that actually I think we'll speak to a bit as we get a little farther. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. Do you guys believe and agree that there's a difference between selling something and helping someone buy a product or service? Let me bring it to the room. Yeah. You feel like maybe they're pretty similar, but there might be a different intent behind it. I think my reaction to are they the same or different is the outcome may end up being the same, but I do believe very much so that the process could look different, and how you come across can be different, and your intention can also be different. And I think that speaks a little to what I was saying also earlier on marketing that manipulates or motivates or inspires. Thank you for sharing that. So kind of if we're actually trying to group some of those attributes of who I am into different types of segments. There are basically five. There are a few more, especially if you include B2B and corporations and all that. But for consumer segments, there's basically five basic types. Demographics are observable traits. And so we talked about, are demographics dead, right? You can observe age, ethnicity, income level, and all of that. And there is a time and a place where something like that's very useful. And we'll speak to when you might want to look at each in a little bit. There's also geographic, that I lived in Utah. But geographic doesn't just mean GPS coordinates. It could also be the urban versus rural that I mentioned. It could also be desert versus oceanside versus forest. It could be rainy areas versus not rainy. So there's geographic segmentations. There's psychographic segmentations, which speak to my values. Am I an environmentalist, right? Do I believe that it's great to have children? Like, what are the values that I have? Am I a big animal lover? Am I a vegetarian, right? These are the psychographic elements. Then there's needs-based, which is really what I am most passionate about, and we'll spend a little bit more time on the needs-based. Have any of you heard the term jobs to be done? Yes, so a few of you. Can somebody kind of give a one-liner on maybe what that might? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I love that. Mhm. So basically, in all of our decisions, and especially on the consumer side, we are hiring and firing products to do a certain role or perform a certain role in our lives. And if a certain product isn't performing that anymore, we're going to fire them and we're going to hire something else. So essentially, it's a focus on, is the product the feature, or is what you're doing for somebody? Am I buying a kitchen knife, or am I buying the ability to host a great dinner party? Back in the day, did you need a faster horse, or was a car also acceptable because your goal, your job to be done was transportation? Taxis and Ubers seem kind of a shift in your thinking. So that's all related to needs space. Needs space can also speak to life stages. Did I just have a baby? In that case, my first baby, there's a whole host of needs and problems that I need solved. And then there's behavioral. There's the literal actions that I took, that I visited a website, that I searched something, that I added something to cart. So for this presentation, these are the 5 types of ways that you can segment a customer. All right. So we're going to dive into when to use each type of segment, and then we're going to share a bit of my experience at Overstock as well. This is a nice kind of summary chart. You can take a picture, or I can send the slides to anyone who wants it later. But essentially, for demographic segmentation, for these observable traits, they're useful in ad targeting basics. They're useful in channel strategy. Is someone spending time on Facebook versus TikTok, for example? In geographic, also ad targeting basics. Location-based services are very important. If you have a regional plumbing service that does not service the next state over, then that's very important for you. Also, if you're growing and you need localized network effects, think about Lyft. Back in the day when they were launching only in specific cities at a time in order to get network effects of enough drivers and riders for it to be a worthwhile customer experience. There's psychographic. This is great for also some ad targeting, but you're creative in content, right? This is a bit of where you learn more about what they actually value, what their lives look like. Are they busy because they have young children, or do they have a lot of free time because they just retired and actually are looking for something to fill that space as an empty nester? Those are some of the psychographics, how they're thinking, what they're valuing. Needs-based, jobs to be done is for strategy. It's for helping define your value proposition. for product development and also for kind of your core messaging. And the behavioral, your observable actions is really useful for retargeting and then personalization. Personalization could be on site, the products that you just viewed, it could be an email. I'll share an example of this later. Also in push notifications can be a place where you can leverage behavioral segmentation. Let me pause here. That was a lot of information. Any questions or comments or observations from this chart? That means either I did a great job explaining it or this is very not interesting, but I hope it's a first. So just in case it's not interesting, I have a competition. You can win this. I was in Napa, my last trip here, this Frog Sleep Zinfandel. I have a little giveaway. So whoever answers this question right first will win this beautiful bottle of wine. How many quarters of positive EBITDA did Overstock have after launching their needs-based segmentation? You can just start shouting out numbers. 1, 8, 5, 12, 7, 13. That was all over the place. And I love that. Somebody said 12. 12 is correct. So, lucky winner. There we go. Hopefully you drink wine. If not, feel free to give it away. By the way, I do want to mention, Overstock has gone through a few different stages in their life. I want to speak to a specific kind of season of their company. They launched first truly as selling Overstock products. And then there was a season where, this was actually incredibly data-driven. They learned that all their EBITDA and revenue was coming and growing through sale of new home goods products. So coffee tables, couches, table runners, bathroom accessories, and such. And so they actually did a full brand pivot and shift into a season where all they sold were brand new home products that they sourced, and their value proposition is, we did the work to find all these products from all these different suppliers because there's no obvious go-to. We put them all in one place and are giving you a great deal on them. That is the version of the Overstock that we're going to talk about here. Overstock saw 12 quarters, right, of positive EBITDA earnings, essentially, right? So just a couple of charts. You don't have to read the whole thing, but you can see there was kind of some mild growth, and then there were absolutely pandemic effects, right? It was e-commerce during the pandemic, and that was a part of the revenue growth. You can see this, the strategic segmentation launch was in Q3 of 2019. So just a little before that. So there was a timing element, but also not shown in these charts, but from internal data and some publicized. By the way, all the slides subsequent to this are on earnings reports, so all publicly available information. Overstock did outpace competitor growth during this time. So through various competitive intelligence, we could see the revenue growth compared to Wayfair and some of the other e-commerce players was higher. So yes, pandemic effects were part of it, but also I strongly believe the segmentation was a huge part of it as well. So what did Overstock do? Overstock segmented all the home shoppers in America. They went through this process of qualitative interviews and then quantitative surveying. And you just kind of go back and forth. You interview people to understand the dimensions by which they are thinking about your products and the job to be done, what they might hire your service for. And then you note those and then you dimensionalize them and then you quantify it. Because you're only interviewing, say, a dozen people at a time or one-on-one, but in that, round, and you might survey 500 people. We did 5,000 people across the US to really understand then how important are the different elements. And then out of that, Overstock then discovered and leveraged some art as well as the science. There's not obviously going to be a clear answer all the time, but 6 different segments that exist on how people want to buy home furnishings. Now, again, there were personas and demographics that were observed and then used to create customer personas so people could, our internal staff could visualize and then write to these people. But the segmentation was purely based on the job to be done, based on what they actually needed to accomplish. So the 2 segments that became the target, and actually primarily the one, was savvy shoppers and then reluctant refreshers. It doesn't say here. So savvy shoppers really enjoyed the thrill of the deal. Like they really valued finding a deal for their home. And then reluctant refreshers were actually willing to generally pay more. They really don't care about home that much, but they want a solid product. They don't want the mental burden of learning too much. It's not their biggest hobby. They're willing to pay just a little bit more to get the right thing and get that job essentially done. So the segments then allow for a unique market position. And how Overstock ended up seeing its position and moving over time is as a home goods expert on the value side, where there's a lot of competitors in Restoration Hardware, Pottery Barn, West Elm, more in the style inspiration home. And then there are department store generalists like the Amazon and Walmarts, and then Target's kind of, because they have so much in the home category, Target's in the bottom right. Overstock landed itself in this home goods expert value, where the brand vision was dream homes for all and smart value was the insight that we were really trying to get across with everyone. Note that we weren't necessarily the only big brand out there, but the way that we were translating that customer need into the product offering was very different than what IKEA did, right? IKEA manufactures their own products, they have the warehouses and everything. Overstock was fully online e-commerce. So then Overstock's strategy became centered completely around the segments. This, I was actually surprised we publicized this, but this was the one pager on everyone's desk. And every meeting we brought, every company-wide meeting, this was brought up at the beginning as a reminder. And then this was iterated on every year. And so this was the strategy. We had a internal vision of dream homes for all, making beautiful and comfortable homes accessible by helping customers easily and confidently find just what they want for less. And then everything centered around the target customers, the savvy shoppers, reluctant refreshers. Again, I can send this deck out, and also there's they're in the earnings slides that Overstock published. Brand pillars, product findability, smart value, easy delivery and support were all discovered and aligned because of the segments. And then we had constitutional principles, enablers, and initiatives that flowed from that. And beyond the vision then, we also we laddered all of our metrics up to creating value for the segment, right? And so for smart value for the savvy shoppers, you can see customer perceived price advantage versus other retailers. We leveraged, I think, BizRate rate surveys for this particular, BizRate rate for this one. You know, how much of our sales were from private label where we knew we could provide better pricing. All the metrics ended up laddering up to this segments and the value for the segments. So then an example of how this really came to life, you can see our site in 2019 versus 2022. Here I'm just marking, so free shipping on everything was something we learned that at the time, this was 4 or 5 years ago, that free shipping messaging still worked. It was not the expectation. It really helped people get over the line, and they were really looking for that for the retailers that they shopped at. And so we made sure, because of that insight, to put that messaging as a banner across the entire site. Sales and deals, right here, there's a page just for that. App exclusive coupon. So beyond the value proposition research for the segments broadly, strategically, we also ended up doing value proposition research on different, essentially, products. Products is the wrong term in this context, but technologies and platforms within our brand. So for the mobile app itself, we did a lot of consumer research and also value proposition definition, and learned from that the savvy shoppers who are using the app, their expectation was that they would find exclusive deals by using the app. So then we created that as a feature and then made sure to publicize that to everyone on desktop. We also learned that it was a bit causal. If we got people to use the app, their overall CLV was higher too. Category specific sales was something else that we discovered. And so you can see how that kind of translated from the strategic to the more tactical. This one then, so that was on the needs-based jobs to be done segmentation. This next example is on behavioral. So what do we know about somebody based on what they did? This was an email, and actually, this is the email. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see this banner and then this as well. I just wanted it all pretty on one slide. But you'll see that it tells you exactly how many rewards dollars you have. You'll see that this entire banner is because you're in the rewards program. And then here are specific recommendations for you based on what you had browsed previously, right? We're trying to make it easy for you to continue your shopping journey. Before I go on then, any questions on the Overstock slides? Or was there anything interesting? Let me ask a different question. Anything interesting you noted that was unexpected? Yeah, we did a lot of incrementality tests. I think a lot of it was not as company-wide strategic. A lot of the different departments, and it grew to be a 2 billion, like 1.5 to $2 billion company by being very scientific, very heavy on the A/B testing. I actually think a little bit to a fault potentially. It seemed that over time our site was a bit Frankensteined because the little individual elements at some point won a test, but then when you test the entirety of the user experience, it might have been a detriment. I'm not saying that's unique to a brand like Overstock, but that happens. But it definitely takes a specific kind of effort and energy to decide to do this. It also really helps with aligning your strategic priorities and projects for future years. That's another way that we use this as well. Mhm.
So you guys made a big shift in your strategy, the brand strategy. Why did you stay with the Overstock name and really didn't do it? Overstock.
Yeah, great
Just
question.
Riding the momentum of.
Yeah, so why stay with the Overstock name when the path was selling brand new home goods? There was constant debate over that. There was a lot of brand equity, super high. Aided brand awareness was 97%. Unaided brand awareness was maybe 60% in the US. That is expensive to get. Another point too is if you do a great job with your value proposition, people stop necessarily associating you directly with the literal words of your name. Amazon doesn't sell rivers. Crate and Barrel doesn't sell boxes and barrels, right? Pottery Barn doesn't sell barns. And so I think there's a little bit of a belief that we could leverage the brand equity of Overstock, but continue to refine the understanding of who we were. Now, that did change because when Overstock bought Bed Bath & Beyond, and I won't dive too deep into this topic, they did completely rebrand to Bed Bath & Beyond for a bit, but then also relaunch Overstock later. So that's a whole other topic that I was not there for all of those discussions. Yeah, I think a big part, this was a little before my time as well, but a big part of it was what of the business is working and growing. And almost regardless of market conditions, what makes the most sense for the brand to grow now. Now, when you do consider the competitive landscape, though, that's where the 2x2 matrix creates some color to why we believe why we should even exist in the world. For example, Wayfair at the time was losing billions of dollars, and Overstock was, as you could see, profitable. And so there's a little bit of a belief of the slow and steady, we can continue to grow profitably and add that value to customers, not knowing whether or not a company like Wayfair was going to crash at some point. And then there's assortment too. Overstock had millions of home goods products in their assortment. Obviously, Amazon is a great example competitor, but a Target or a Walmart aren't going to have the same assortment. So most of us are not working for multi-billion-dollar retailers at the moment. So what does this mean for us? I'd like to point out that you likely already know your customers, and there is an 80-20 there. Instead of needing to spend large amounts of money working with high-end consultants that Overstock did on that strategic segmentation for really needing to understand the entirety of the country, you can probably put together things like your customer persona or target segments. This, for example, is one of my clients. Dwellify is a one-stop shop home remodeler. They're a bit of a tech startup with a full service from design to materials to construction. They do it all for you. And so I was able to meet with a lot of their staff, read reviews and everything from customers, and start piecing together a few different target segments for them. which also led to a brand positioning of Dwellify being the done for you value, as opposed to a do-it-yourself or more of a premium brand. And also defining a value proposition. This particular methodology for value proposition, by the way, comes from the CPG world, defining the customer need, the brand promise, and the reasons to believe. And that this is actually something I always recommend to people for each of their brands as well, but we won't dive into that. By the way, talk with Dwellify. If anyone needs home remodeling, you can use code Salt Foundry for 50% off if you're a design person. Any questions on kind of translating for your own brands here?
How big is Dwellify?
Um, they have about a dozen or so staff. They're private equity backed.
What do you do with that asset?
Yeah, so I'm their fractional CMO. So I'm not a consultant doing this as a one-time project. An example of what we did is share this out with their social media coordinators to align. There's other slides on brand voice as well. I was hearing feedback both from contractors they were working with and internal staff on, we're being told to stay on brand, but we don't know what that means. So they already had a brand visual standards guide, like a logo and everything, but they didn't have this. They didn't have defined customers. Also, I'd define the personality and the voice using words and say, here's what we are, here's what we're not. We also sent this to We Switch ad agencies. So we sent this to them, and their first round of ad creative coming back to us was like 95% there. So it shortcuts and it creates a foundation for you to generate. And you can imagine, like, from some of the specific words in here, brand promise, let's see. Dwellify makes home renovations easy by streamlining and taking accountability for the entire process. So you can get the look you want at the price you need without the hassle of talking to multiple vendors or leaving your home. That is an internal statement, but you can already imagine 5 or 10 little phrases within that. There's a whole host of marketing specific, copy that you could brainstorm from that. Thank you for asking. I'm sure you already knew that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, this one is for the main target persona. You could write more for others. I tried to do the value proposition at a brand level, and the brand should have one primary target. And so from my perspective, there should only be one of these. But as you go, there are 2 other segments. This one was the hectic harmony seeker. There's the mindful modernizer, which is the empty nester who now wants to make their home a good space for the grandkids to come over and be able to make memories. And then there's a, what do I call it? Something renovator, who wants to leverage a tool like this to templatize rental units. So they want to rent out, they have some capital, they want to dive into the Airbnb business or something. So for each of those, and then within these and the subsequent, there's more slides for each persona. That's where you get more specific on what they're looking for.
My second question is, once you have these personas, so for example, we made the mistake of having one segment that had a much larger opportunity. There's far more of that type of person. And then we had another segment that was like truly advocating. And we shifted towards the larger market opportunity and kind of abandoned our advocates, which ended up being a terrible decision. How do you decide, like, that's the question, right? Like, what are some strategies you use?
Yeah, I will say, again, that's a very difficult conversation. And so when Overstock did the 6, each of the 6 also, you could see the size of the market, what percent they were. And that for sure was a factor into who our strategic segments were. And in fact, Savvy Shoppers, if I'm remembering right, was only about 14% of the market. And that seemed too small. And that's part of where, if we were to pick a secondary, which direction do we go? Do we lean more toward this Select and Refresher or the confident enthusiast? And we felt that the competition, what was out there already in the market, Wayfair led a lot more in the confident enthusiast side. And so we wanted to just be the place you went and bought the thing. We didn't not need to be high inspiration. We did not need to do a ton of the content marketing. We wanted a really streamlined, efficient, low price, easy way to convert. And so market size was a huge part of the conversation. Electric refreshers was another 20% or so of the market. And so that's part of the decision making. Another thing I consider as well is, what is the vision of the company? What are you trying to accomplish? If growth for sure has to be the goal, or is the goal and is the dream, then your market size plays a bigger role. If running a profitable company that does something good in the world for a set of people who have a need is the goal, then sticking with that could make a lot of sense. Now, I will say as well then, there might be some complementary offerings for that group, or there might be other ways to not lose your soul while expanding your market. And so there's an art and different, out of your research, hopefully you start hearing pieces of that as well. There could be complementary products that Doug and I were just talking about another business here in Santa Cruz, that they could really easily do complementary products for a whole different use case. So that might be an opportunity as well. Yeah. I will still say though that your brand messaging probably still should target your primary, but what you're saying about then the specific campaigns, the personalization, behavior-based, personalization and all of that, and where you run your ads offsite, different landing pages, different experiences you land them on, for sure, yes. You customize them to the different segments and what their needs are. Reminder, segmentation doesn't solve everything. So back in context, 5 elements of effective marketing, of customer and brand strategy, segmentation. You haven't exactly seen the slide. Segmentation is one, subsection of all that, right? So it is very useful, very helpful. It is not going to solve all of your marketing problems. And as a recap on the 3 things I promised, understand the foundation of marketing strategy. There's 5 elements. Recognize the value of customer empathy. Empathy allows you to solve customers' problems at each stage of their journey. And then know when to use each type of segmentation. Here's a nice little summary sentence if you wanted the one-liner. Use needs-based for strategy, behavioral for personalization, psychographic for creative, and the rest for targeting. If you just needed like a basic, just get me started, like there's your sentence for you, and I'll let you all take a picture of that. And then I will just leave you with basically one final thought, and then of course can open up to general discussion and questions. My final thought is that segmentation empowers empathy, and empathy drives results. If you want a picture of that, thank you. And then here is a QR code that brings up my contact card if you want to stay in touch. You can press the button to add contact. If you click on any of these as well, it'll pull up the text message or email. I would love to meet you all. I will be around as long as you all want to. Meeting with folks at Principal Faucet's at some point this afternoon as well. Heading to Merge 4's office a little later, but I'm here. Thank you.